Oh wait, the fucking intro didn't go.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and oh my god, it's the 1 year anniversary of According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of having christening this 1 year kind of sabbatical, this kind of deal that I've got here with UFC fighter, host of the Sex and Violence podcast with Rebel Girl, Ashlee Evan Smith. Ashlee, what's going on?
Thank you for honoring me and allowing me to be your 1 year anniversary show as a podcaster. I know that it is a big deal. And so I want to say congratulations and keep it up. You're doing amazing.
You're tremendous. And as a podcaster yourself, I take so much from your podcast, and that's a crazy thing. It's an art form, right? It's an art form to be able to talk. And it doesn't seem like it at first because everybody theoretically talks, right? But then to do it well and to have a engaging conversation with the guests and then dual fart your audience at the same time, it can be a kind of a juggling thing. You kind of feel like Circus Soleil at times.
Yeah, I mean, some people have a co-host that you can riff on back and forth. I don't have that, so it's a very one-dimensional relationship with me and my listeners. I'll make a joke. I'm like, are they listening? Are they laughing over there? I don't fucking know. I hope so. And then when you get a guest, you could have chemistry. I'm sure you and I are going to flow,
Yeah.
but you may get someone who's like, yes, no, yes, and you're like, fuck. And you got to do your best to keep the conversation going and make it interesting. And so interviewing itself, maybe not talking, but interviewing is definitely an art. And it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, what? Boring one word answers for an hour's time? That has never happened. Never. It never happened at all. No, but you know what's cool about you and what you are doing with your podcast is the fact that you are usually on the other side, right? You are the interviewee, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of flip the script on folks, and you become the host, right? How has that been? Because you're used to being the interviewee and have been for, I mean, the better part of a decade, really. And now, like, was there any kind of gap in between, or was it something that came to you pretty naturally?
Well, something that people don't know is that I have my degree in communications with concentration in media studies. So before I became an MMA fighter, I thought that I wanted to be an investigative journalist, and then I thought maybe I would be a private investigator. Maybe I thought I would join the police force, become a badass cop, and then start my own private eye. I don't know. I had very big dreams and aspirations. I graduated from college in 2009 at Menlo College. It was the recession. So not only could I not get a job, there's no internships. It was just really bad. So even though I got into fighting, I feel like I've come 180, 360, whatever. Math is not my strong point. But, made full circle back to interviewing and communications and all that kind of stuff. So I have a little tiny bit of acting on my, high school, college, that kind of stuff. And then just being in front of the camera, fighting, interviews, all that kind of stuff. It's, this accumulation of airtime and experience. And so when I started podcasting, a lot of people were like, whoa, you're a natural. And I'm like, I've been doing it a little bit, so I don't think I'm that great, but I do think that with the life experiences that I've had, it was a smooth transition.
No, 100%. Again, almost flawless transition, in my aspect, my vantage point, if you will. But it's funny. It does seem kind of apropos, right? You're reporting now, Ashlee Evan Smith. Like, it does seem right. Like, I'm just saying.
I mean, honestly, like I never really saw myself as a podcaster because I never got into podcasts until I started doing my own. And No, you know what? I lie. About a year before I started my own, I got really into podcasts. The antithesis of my podcast is a podcast called Guys Be Fucked, and it's two comedians, and they are in New York, and they are two girls, and they talk about it's what started off as like funny relationship like stories. They interview mainly comedians about their personal lives, just like I do. So, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I definitely took, a little bit of their model and then added my own segments. Obviously I don't, it's fighters. And so it's very different in that way. But, um, you know, it's all new, but it's working out for the best. And I've got a lot of good feedback. I know I have a lot to learn. We don't even have what we're seeing right here, this whole beautiful video. I'm just audio right now. I'm trying to figure out my video. If anyone is in Orange County and wants to work with me, they're a videographer, please hit me up, DM me at Ashlee MMA. I'm sure Adam will add some lower thirds right here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I mean, it is a smooth transition, but it's different. It's a new medium. It's not anything that I learned in college, and it's all learning in the moment. So you'll listen to my podcast, and I'll be like, and that's probably going to happen for a few more years until I become, Joe Rogan status. I mean, obviously not Joe Rogan status, but very, very well versed in it, and second nature.
Why can't you be Joe Rogan? And it's funny because I mean, Uncle Joe, that is the guy for me. I've got this deal. Whenever I feel kind of out of sorts or whatever, I look and go, "What would Uncle Joe do?"
What would you do?
Yes, that's it, man. Because and again, you come from a communications background. I went to radio school in the early 2000s, and it's one of those deals where when you have that kind of augmented, antiquated, tried and true for 50 fucking years, kind of formula to go about things, to be able to say fuck or to go and have the luxury of doing that without getting a FCC regulation of fines, it can be kind of unnerving. Like, yes, you're free. Yes, it's amazing, but like, oh no, what the fuck? Like, is somebody going to be, on my fucking shoulder, tapping me on the back and going like, no, you cannot do that.
Well, I think you and I are different in the sense that you were taught a certain way, but I didn't study radio. I actually was the editor of my newspaper for my junior and senior year. So, I mean, obviously someone should have told me like, hey, fucking print journalism is a dying medium. No one told me that. So I wasted a lot of time, but I also was wrestling for 4 years, which I'm obviously using in my UFC career and, athletic career in general. So you probably learned a lot more skills in college that you apply now. Me, it's actually a trade-off, right? There's good things and bad things. I don't have the preconceived notions that I can't say fuck. So I'm just like, fuck, 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 but maybe you're like, oh, you catch yourself, but then you're like, I don't really have to censor myself. So there's pros and cons with that kind of stuff too.
No, 100%. Yeah, it's yin and yang, as everything in life. I mean, wouldn't you know who won the pony? If you were like I don't know, what is it, like a stockbroker? If you went to school for stockbroking and what have you and whatever, right? And you got your degree in it, and then meme stocks, the fucking GameStop and the AMC's and of the world, and Bitcoin and Dogecoin. You're like, the fuck? Oh, this is useless. Like fucking $1.2 million of debt just out the fucking door. Like none of it fucking matters.
Yeah. The world is ever changing, and it's like as soon as you learn something, there's a new app for that. There's a new social media. There's more regulations, more laws, different pronouns. Like I don't even know.
No, you're it. Yeah, it's just like I kind of dip my toe, and then sometimes I'll jump back out and whatever. It's what the remedy for me is having my wife, right? Who is not, because for me, I'm like 12-year-old, right? So for me, pro wrestling, MMA, that is it. Like, and I don't really, I don't watch movies. It's just that, and documentaries and YouTube of different fights, different matches, behind the fucking scenes, podcasts about certain fights and fighters. It's all whatever. My wife, my kids, not into any of it. Not into any of it. So sometimes I'll just kind of check in and go like, "Hey, what the fuck is going on in the world?" And it works.
Literally, that's exactly how it is with my boyfriend. You've met Mike, and I'll just be in
Yes.
my own little world. I mean, I like a lot of things, music and other things that's not MMA, not just podcasting, but I tend to stay in my own little world. And I'm not very political, I'm not religious. I'm not, I don't even follow the news close by, like Mike, my boyfriend, has to tell me like, hey, like fucking crime is up in LA 40%. Maybe don't just go walking around to go visit your friend. I'm like, okay, like I would have not probably went tra la 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 down Sunset or something. But yeah, like I feel like having a partner who maybe they don't like exactly the opposite, but they're not in like your own world, which my partner is in my world, but he's a lot more, I don't know, he's more of an adult. He adults better than I do, I think. Yeah, a lot better.
Well, I guess Paula Abdul and that fucking cheetah from that music video said it right. That two steps forward, two steps back, opposites attract. Back in the early '90s, you remember that fucking deep cut?
Vaguely.
Yeah, dude, fucking Paula Abdul. That was the shit. You didn't think you were getting that, right? Paula Abdul references.
I like music reference, so that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Now Anderson North, a tremendous wrestler out of England, says, "With what's being discussed, I'd love to discuss the difference between British and American schooling." Ooh, that might be a wonderful wormhole to go down. So, reach out to me and shoot out to my DMs. We'll get that done. But you mentioned your wrestling kind of prowess. Um, like at what point in your life, because you're into so many things, and it's pretty apropos, you're the rebel girl. You fucking do your own way, in the words of Fleetwood Mac. You go your own way. But what was it about wrestling that kind of drew you into kind of like getting your feet wet with mixed martial arts or combat sports in general?
Yeah, it is. I'm so lucky, so grateful, just lucky, really, because, obviously, females in wrestling and females in mixed martial arts, females in any kind of contact sport is unusual. Even more so when I started high school in 2001. I was a freshman. So there no women's wrestling teams, nothing like that, I just took a dare. I guess not even a dare. It was my brother's best friend who I used to beat up because I was a tomboy. He told me that, oh, girls can't wrestle. And Rebel Girl has an issue with telling somebody telling me that I can't do something, and just that natural stubbornness, natural competitiveness. Like I went out and joined the wrestling team on a boys' team, and I got my ass kicked for weeks and weeks and weeks until I finally beat like one girl at another school, and then that was just like a bug. Like I got, like like the itch, and I just wanted more. I wanted more victories, and so I stayed on the boys team, and then I got a scholarship to go to college. Went to Menlo College, was a 4-time All-American. Love wrestling with like a passion. It is my first love, and it probably will be my biggest love for the rest of my life because I was such a shithead little kid. It saved me. It got me out of juvenile hall. Like, I'm very open with my story, and I talk a lot about it if people ask me about my past. But wrestling saved my life, and it just kept me on a good track to not get in trouble, to go to college. And then obviously I got into mixed martial arts because a chance meeting with Eugene Jackson, who was my first ever MMA coach, as you know, probably since you're
Yeah,
smart with the MMA. He's an OG
yeah.
of MMA and the UFC. And so I just feel so lucky, lucky to have been a girl in wrestling, lucky to have went to college in the Bay Area. I'm from a really small town. I got a scholarship. Lucky to have that chance meeting with Eugene, and lucky to not give up somewhere along the way because fuck, it's hard, right? The financial struggles, the injuries, being sore every goddamn day of your life, being selfish and having to prioritize, good times over sacrifice, whatever. So I'm lucky, but I also know that I put a lot of hard work in. But a lot of it is luck because let's face it, so many fighters out there are dying to be where I'm at on the
Yeah.
UFC level. And what's the difference between me and them? I can't say that they haven't worked their asses off. Maybe I just got the call. or it was I'm lucky in that sense, right?
No, 1,000%, and I love how you phrase that because there isn't any kind of brass tacks kind of I guess formulation or
Criteria.
foundation on how to get to the top echelons of combat sports, right? You got like the Rich Franklin, Misha Tates, yourself included, right? College educated and what have you. Then you've got sometimes former felons and what have you that become champions, and you're right, exactly right. Or you could be at an elite gym and just kind of like small fist, big pond, but then you could also train at a gym that nobody's ever heard of and be centered around them and what have you, and that's it, right? Like, I
Yeah,
just love it.
it's there's no, like you said, I think criteria or yeah recipe. There is no recipe. You can be someone who's 15-0 and get into the UFC, or me. I took a short notice fight. I was only 3-0, and so it's a weird sport because it's not fully developed the way like and the NBA is or the NFL. It's just newer, the fastest growing. It's growing faster than you can regulate it or set and establish these unified rules and unified criteria. It's great because I love this sport, but sometimes bad things happen, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
judging calls, or refing situations or whatever, right? Or remember the one time, I forget who it was. I think it was Pearl Gonzalez. New York had just,
Yes, the implants.
yeah, New York had just, what's the word? Allowed you.
Regulated, yeah, regulated MMA.
And Misha Tate, I think, had like just fought there, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously, common knowledge that she has implants, and then Pearl went, and the commission wouldn't let her fight at first. Eventually they let her fight, but they were like, you got fake movies, and it's just like in 20 years we're gonna look back at all this stuff and be like, wow, it was embarrassing how shit was not established.
Yeah, I guess hindsight is always 2020, right? I mean, even like the pantheons of MMA, like Pride Rules, and like the one, what is it, Art Jimerson with the one
Yeah,
glove and
yeah,
one ungloved and shit like that. And you gotta, and that's with everything, not just MMA, right? Technology, right? We look back at the first iPhone and like, oh, what a hunk of shit this thing is, right? I mean, that was the light. If the time and place and what have you, that was the light for that era, right?
yeah.
But it just, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of things especially in the last like 18 months that are we're gonna go back in 20 years, or if the aliens come, you're gonna be like, motherfuck.
Oh yeah, I'm the pandemic was shit for a lot of people, myself included, but there's this weird thing. It's like, the people that were a part of the Great Depression or these crazy things that happened in the world. It's like you can later in life be like, I went through that, and then we all have our individual story of trials and triumph and whatever. And so, not that I'm like, woo, I made it through the pandemic or I experienced the pandemic, but just like you said, it's like in 20 years, it's going to be so crazy to be like, remember when there was Fight Island and quarantines and sticking shit up your nose every 5 days and false negatives and all these? You're like, oh, that was fucking wild.
Joe Schilling knocking motherfuckers out at bars.
That's been around forever. So I don't know. It's so fucked nowadays with like camera angles and two sides to every story. And I don't know. I try not to get involved
Yeah.
because maybe he did a good thing, but we just couldn't hear what was going on. Or maybe Joe had too many drinks and that guy was like, "Excuse me, sir," and he just I don't know. Who knows? But I try not to get involved with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, everybody has their way about doing it. And Joe has always been kind to me. I'm like literally minutes from the yard.
Oh yeah, I
So,
mean, I just did my last camp. I
yes,
worked
you did.
Yeah, I worked with Yoshi at the yard, who is an amazing Muay Thai coach.
Yes.
Joe was training there. Saw D Rod train there. It was such a weird time during the pandemic, so I
Right.
didn't really get to create these teammate connections. It was really like a one-on-one situation because of COVID and whatnot. But cool Jim. Joe's always been very cool. He's one of those people who is unapologetically himself, which I very much appreciate.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, in some people that again, we kind of live L.A., right, Southern California, where people can maybe have a self. I don't know what is it, a false sense of self. That's kind of what we're doing, right? You know, they might be. Oh, they might have one Screen Actors Guild credit, and they think they're hot shit, or I've got 80,000 fucking followers or whatever. All right, I mean, those happen, right? But
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to see a you or a Joe or Yoshi Hishitaki, Mark Komoro, like and Colin Oyama, like those motherfuckers that'll just like, no man, we're not gonna give you any fluff. Like this is all killer no filler. If you want to fucking be a champion, here's what it is. You defer from that, okay, you're assed out and you're not worth my time. Sometimes that's refreshing.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Anderson North says he trains in karate, judo, and by extension MMA. Has really taught me discipline that I needed in life. So I get you. No, 100%. Shout out to you, Anderson. And our friend Cutman Big Surge says awesome interview. Two goats. I might be more of a woolly mammoth. Are you a goat? Do you feel like a goat, Ashley? Do you feel like
What would my spirit animal be? I've always felt like a wolf
ooh,
because they're very like they're like lone wolf, but then they're
yeah,
also pack animals at the
you're right.
same time. So I'm gonna go wolf, maybe not the goat. That's a fucking pretty big compliment. So thank you to that person.
Yeah. Oh, Big Surge, Cutman Surge, three-time Cutman of the Year, Cutman for obviously Black House MMA. So shout out to Big Surge, who's doing big things. I mean, literally every time he comes up on my timeline, he got another like award or Hall of Fame or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I need to fucking. That's the fucking catch 22 about being friends with you folk, right? I'm all like, oh man, I'm not doing shit. Like that's kind of how I feel. It's just like
Yeah, but
I
what
need
did
to
you?
do more.
No. You told me the first thing you said. Don't compare yourself. Remember? I
Yes,
said something about this or whatever, and you were like, "Don't compare yourself." And I'm like, "All right."
true.
So I'll tell you, don't compare yourself.
You. That's why you're tremendous. You're tremendous. And I mean, I guess I would be more. Here's a weird one. So I was born '85, and then May 7th, right? So I'm 85 is ox in terms of the Chinese lunar calendar, and then a Taurus by May, right? So I'm a bull. I'm a fucking bull, and sometimes it's shit, sometimes it's bullshit. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
No. So I guess in terms of fight life, right? Do you have a favorite memory so far? And that's not just a fight, but maybe the lead up to the fight, the way you felt, and all that jazz. Like, do you have a favorite memory thus far?
Man, that is so hard. I have so many memories and so many good ones, and a lot of ones that aren't necessarily like a happy story, but getting through it helped me become a better person, or I tested myself and I really didn't know how I was going to do, and I came out better than what I planned, or maybe I failed but I realized what I need to work on. And that's the great thing about this sport. I know I'm elaborating, but there's so many situations where maybe it's a fucked up thing. You lose a fight, a horrible weight cut, social media bullshit, like whatever, right? But as a normal person, like normal people don't go through these things,
Right.
which some people would say, yeah, I don't want to go through that. But I want to test myself. I want to see what I'm made of. How can I become a better person? How can I become stronger, more resilient? I sound like I'm talking about tires more than a person, but I want to be a sturdy, strong individual because fucking look at the pandemic. Who knows what can happen in the world? I
Yeah.
don't want to be one of these soft motherfuckers that gets cut off and then it's just like, oh, I'm having a breakdown. It's like I've been through some shit. Like I'm gonna last no matter what. So to get back to your question, if I had to pick one, I'm just gonna say this last. Sorry, it's not the last camp that I went through, but the second to last camp and I say camp, not fight, because I was supposed to go fight Molly McCann in London, and then boom, the pandemic hit.
Right.
Flew all the way to London and to just be turned around. But the UFC basically was like, go home because travel restrictions are being put in play, and we don't want you to be quarantined in London, which kind of sounded fun at the time. But so I came home. But the best part of this whole situation was I had just started dating my boyfriend now, and it was only maybe like 4 months into the relationship. Like I was like newly sober, and we definitely hadn't even said the L word yet. And he basically was like, "Hey, like I want to go corner you. I'm gonna buy my own ticket, fly over to London with you, and support you any way that I can." And then when the pandemic hit, we just fucking it was like ride or die, and we knew that this was now my person. And I knew it before, but like when the shit hits the fan, it's like a perfect tester for like, is this gonna last? Because you could do the whole honeymoon stage and whatever, but when the world is falling apart, that's when you really get to see what your relationship is made of. And so that was such like a perfect, not ideal financially, but a perfect situation to really like test my partner, and if he was going to be a good partner, not just for like me, but like the way that I saw my life going, like I'm newly sober, focused just on my fighting, like cutting out all the toxicity in my life. And he was game. He was along for the ride. And not only was he game, but he brought out this better side of me. And so, not to be all mushy, but yeah, that was probably one of my favorite and most recent memories from fighting.
I love that, and that's getting the Mario Yamasaki's for me. Like that's it, and not that I want you guys to just bleed or just die, but I've been a fortunate one to see you guys interact, you know, by my eyes, and again,
We all hung out and we watched the fight together.
yeah, you
Like
guys are.
heads up, now I'm a big. I love games. I love board games. I'm a fucking nerd, I guess. But yeah, we all played, and that's when your music trivia came into play, and I was like, ooh, I respect someone who knows their music.
Yo, we're here. Like again, we were fab, and it's funny, like figuring out like both because I never like I think maybe we took a picture together at like a Celtic Gladiator card in El Monte like 4 years ago, right?
Wow.
And
That's
then
I don't remember.
yeah, right, exactly. That's cool. And then like I'd known a lot of people that you knew. I knew a lot of people that Mike knew, but not actually know you guys. So to get that part of the puzzle kind of put together was just amazing. And again, you are the undisputed. A lot of people like to go goats and champions and whatever, but I will say that you probably are the undisputed queen champion of ice breaking games.
Oh, well, I think that that is a good quality that I have, this ability to relate to pretty much anyone, even if I don't like them. I can find some way to relate to someone, and not being fake, but just like, fuck, we're all human, just like shooting the shit, or like I'll just pull out a game or play the game. And yeah, I think that's really helped me out in my podcasting career, because it's the ability to keep the conversation flowing and find common ground and whatever.
No, 1,000%, and you do it absolutely well. And it's funny. Big Surge says Woolly Mammoth and the Mochi Wolf.
Which
Ah,
will,
I like it.
I'll say,
Yeah, that's it. I love it. No, I love it too, 100%. And yeah, and Anderson North says ironically and intense. So yeah, that's cool. So let's talk about the podcast, right? You're how many 50 some odd a year, if you're talking about like timeline wise, a year and change in 50 some odd episodes, man. Congratulations to you, because again, most people, especially during the pandemic, right, or even sometimes even before the pandemic, like I'm gonna do a podcast when some like a Rogan or a Joey Diaz signs a multi-million-dollar deal and everybody starts to want to do it. But one thing that you do impeccably well, I would say as good, if not better, than fighting, and you're a great fighter, but you're a great podcaster. So what was the genesis of the Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl podcasts?
Yeah, I mean, so I did consider, well, I did play around with the idea of starting a podcast before the pandemic, probably like at least like 4 or 5 months before the pandemic. I had shot the idea of like sex and violence, where I interview fighters, but not just about fighting, about their personal lives. And it could be something as vanilla as Mark Munoz's wedding, stories, or Colby Covington's ass and titty stories, and then I would tell these people, and everyone, not just my friends, because you gotta ask people that actually, aren't just yes men and yes women. A lot of people
Yeah.
want to support you, but I just wanted real opinions, and everyone that I told was like, yeah, I would listen to that. That's very unique. Who doesn't like sex and violence? And so I made excuses, oh, I don't have time. I don't have the money. I don't have this, blah, blah, blah. And then the pandemic hit, and I just realized, I'm like, this is, there's no better time than now. And I started it. A lot of people have helped me along the way. My audio engineer, DJ Zoll, who basically does all the tech stuff for me. I obviously create the show, book the guests, make the segments, market on social media, pretty much anything that doesn't have to do with tech stuff. Zoll does audio wise. And so he's amazing. If you guys need any kind of audio stuff in Orange County, it's at DJ Zoll on Instagram. Just a good human and a friend. And, him and I have been trucking along. We've had some people come on, some people fall off, but like him and I are the core team, and we keep it going. And one thing I said early on was, when I started this, I did not want to be a part of the whole pod fade. Pod fade is about 7 episodes in, when podcasters, for some reason or another, just go, this isn't for me. And I'm no fucking quitter. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And right off the bat, I had amazing guests, like Jessica I, Tracy Cortez, like Pauly Shore, like how did I get these people to do my podcast? I just like picked up a mic and was like, "Hi guys, testing 1, 2, 3." Like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I'm so grateful. And I think it's a mixture of everybody during the pandemic respected somebody else's grind. It's like, hey, this person's trying, and so they gave me a shot, and I'm still so grateful to those first 52 guests. Every guest I'm grateful, but yeah, basically, to answer your question, sorry, very long-winded.
No, elaborate. Wormholes. That's what podcasting is for. Go for it.
I basically I said fuck it, and with the support of my boyfriend, who I wasn't gonna do it, but and it's very ironic too. It's like, your boyfriend told you to start a sex podcast, but if I say I want to do something, he believes in me more than I believe in myself, which is such a good feeling. Like I am my own worst critic a lot of the time, and then I've just got him being like, you're amazing, you're beautiful. I'm like, I'm amazing, I'm beautiful, I can do this. And so I did it, and it's been amazing. I'm not not quite breaking even, with the bills yet. But I don't care. I know, just like fighting, that if I put enough time and I put enough work and I continue to learn things, like I'm always listening to podcasts about podcasts. Like, how fucking boring does that sound? But to me and you, I'm like, oh shit, did you know there's a new, like, the Apple subscriptions are coming, like nerding out, because I want to be the best I can be in my chosen profession. MMA, obviously fighting, my sport, but now podcasting. And so maybe I won't be a fucking Joe Rogan or a Joey Diaz right off the bat, but I'm an Ashlee Evans Smith. I'm a rebel girl. I'm sex and violence with rebel girl, and that's all I really ever wanted to be.
No, I just love it. I love it. And I'm, and it's funny because, like, the genesis of this podcast, like, I'd done periodic Facebook lives and Instagram lives and everything, like we all do, right? But like, actually starting a podcast, like, I did absolute fuck all, right? From March to, I think, I want to say, like, end of June 2020, where a couple of my friends, shout out to the Keyboard Warriors MMA podcast and the what was it, the MMA Storytime podcast, that were like, hey, would you want to be a guest on our podcast? And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, right on, because I'm literally I'm jonesing for a fight. I'm looking for a fight, as the saying goes, right? And they were like, no, you're so great. Why don't you fucking start one? I was like, yeah, because I hate editing and all that shit. It's like,
Mhm.
no, we're using this thing, StreamYard, whatever the fuck. You don't have to do it. It just goes live, whatever, $25 a month, $50 a month, whatever the fuck, do it. I was like, all right, cool. That's why, like, I love when people, because again, we saw it in the pandemic, right? Depression, like low self esteem, all of this stuff, right? So if this is right, so if this is your thing to do, fucking come on, let's do it. Because I would rather have all of my friends that are doing the thing and get their kind of I don't know, like a point of relevance, right? Like the fact that they're like, we're doing the fucking thing that we always wanted to do, because that's what it is for me. So if you're in it, I'm all like, fuck yeah, do it. Like, and we'll share tips and fucking DM and like, oh, whatever. Because again, this right now it's never been done before. Like again, I was going from Inglewood, California to Huntington Beach on Beach and Edinger, right behind the BJ's, to radio school, 4 hours each way on the bus. And then when we had a bus strike in 2003, I couldn't go. 20 grand in the hole, didn't even finish my fucking term. And, but now I have a studio apartment in the corner of my living room. It's fucking wild.
Well, congrats. And I think that, a lot of people think it's easy, and that's why there is so much pod fade, right? There's like 2 million podcasts out there. Like it was a statistic the other day, but that doesn't mean that it's a podcast like you and I who made it over a year. I think the number drastically changes when you get those numbers. That's that kind of like criteria, like over a year, over 2 years. And I have so much respect for the people like you that are actually doing it and that continue to do it, because there's peaks and valleys. Sometimes you're going to have, like a couple hundred listens, and then sometimes you're going to get a couple thousand. And it's just like with life. It's like, oh, I'm fighting, you lose a fight. You're like, do you quit? No, you go back and you learn and you get better. And then maybe you get, maybe you win your next fight. Maybe you get 10,000 likes, So I told all my listeners, all my followers on the podcast, that I was going to approach this podcast like I would a fight. I'm going to give it my fucking all. And if I take an L, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to get better and better. So, but I have so much respect for fellow podcasters. I do. And I've been doing a lot of, smaller podcasts, if you will. Not that, that matters, but a lot of people are appreciative of me being like, yeah, I'll do your podcast, and you get 10 listens. Like, fuck it, let's do it. Because I know what you go through, all the tech stuff and the marketing and creating and reaching out and booking. And like, it is a lot of work, and everybody thinks that they can do it. It's so easy. Not fucking easy.
No, it isn't. But again, for you to, go out of your way to be able to enrich the lives and the algorithms of other podcasts, it's absolutely tremendous. Like even like I was just like, hey, you could say no. You could say no because you are. Let's be fair. You are one of the bigger names in combat sports and one of the most recognizable deals, which I love because you know what? You can't be eight. We've been to like the Spar Star here in California where there's 18 fights in the card and everybody says, I'm going to fuck that motherfucker up. Well, again, after maybe the third fucking fight of that, it gets old. Fucking gets old. So thank you for being a recognizable person, B, so fucking down to just like, yeah, let's fucking collab. Let's do the fucking thing.
You want to know a fun fact about Spar Star?
You fought on one?
I fought on Spar Star.
Yes.
I think it was even before I was living here in Orange County. It was obviously an amateur show. I mean, let's probably say like, I don't know, if you look at my shirt dog, it's like probably 2010 or 11, something like that. But so I moved down here, and Tony Padilla, T-Bone, basically said, hey, was it Tony or James Trotter? But like these production guys basically were like, hey, if you ever want to do, they knew I went to journalism, to school for journalism. And they said, if you ever want to do some interviews on camera, come down and do it. And I still have on my YouTube, it's on private, but they're horrendous. And I'm like, like I look different, like my body's different, like less tattoos, and I'm just like interviewing these fighters like right after their fights, and they're all camo guys, and I'm just like, wow, like I've come so far, and you just never know who's gonna give you your start, and so like I'll never get too big for my britches. Like I'll always know who gave me my start, where I come from, doing other little podcasts like that. Like I feel like that's paying it forward.
No, 1,000%. And not that I would ever give anyone advice, especially you, but I say fucking unlock that shit, make that public, because again, to show the growth. The growth. I know it's weird. Like, I mean, you can fucking. There are times, I think I did like a fighters rep show, the one that Anderson Silva, Gabriel Silva fought on, like his last fight, essentially.
The his son, the kickboxing show in
Yeah,
Anaheim.
absolutely. In Seal Beach. So
No. Anyway.
before it was like a kickboxing show. It was an amateur MMA show ordained by CAMO, the California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization here in California, the governing body of all amateur fights. But I went to like San Bernardino and I fucking took the Metrolink to San Bernardino and like I was doing this shit off my phone. The audio is absolute dog shit, but it's still there because I think it's important because a lot of people will see, kind of the come up, right? And I'm a fervent believer that it takes a lifetime to become an overnight success, right? And there's a lot of people that don't know how to fucking start, and it's not just like in podcasting, but whatever it is that they need that ignition switch lit in their life, that can be the catalyst. That foobar, the fucking mumble mouth, the stutter, there's too many ahs in a 3-minute fucking interview. Well, again, that is going to be the thing that somebody kind of latches on, and I don't know, fuck, they're challenging Elon Musk to race shit into the fucking moon.
Yeah, I still say all the fucking time, and like even today I was interviewing Janae Harding, super super sweet New Zealander living in Australia, Bellator fighter.
Yeah, she's been on here.
Okay,
Yeah.
What a great person. What a great.
Yeah.
I hope she comes back. I mean, she's gonna come back to Orange County and train. But I'm like, I would love to be all healed up from my spine surgery and train with her, just like a really cool human, I think. And but anyway, I'm interviewing her, and I'm like, and I can hear it. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, don't say and I just, like I just said, like I said earlier, it's a learning process, and I'm sure I'm gonna suck for a few more years, but I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, I don't ever want you to like again for what you're doing right now. Much like Ronda Rousey and the Ronda effect, as I call it, right? Where essentially, how many little girls, little boys, everything started training judo, jujitsu from watching a Ronda Rousey, watching you, watching Carla Esparza, and what have you, right? So how many kick-ass fucking girl fucking podcasts will kind of be born because of the Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl fucking podcast?
That would be awesome.
I see it. Please don't leave. Never leave. I think this is your fucking shit, man.
I love it. And the thing, even if, maybe no podcast gets started, but I know in my heart that some of these experiences and guests who have shared their stories, I know that someone has listened, heard these stories and felt not so alone or inspired or like whatever they connected and resonated with it some way. And so I know that it's a sex podcast or a fighting podcast, but there's deeper meaning to it, and it's really doing more than just being a fucking sex podcast. Like it's a platform for people to show a side of themselves that maybe they wouldn't, otherwise. And you may say like, oh, who cares? That's a personal side. Keep that personal. But you know what? Shame dies when stories are told in safe places. And that is one of my favorite fucking quotes. And it's very true. And so I'm not saying I'm doing the Lord's work over here, but it's a really cool outlet for a lot of people. And I've only gotten positive feedback from all my guests. They basically tell me that it's the best interview and the most fun interview they've ever done. It's a refreshing change from how are you preparing for this fight? How's the weight cut going? Like blah blah blah. So I know I may not win a fucking, what's a fucking what's the awards for podcasting? I don't even know what they are. A
I don't
fucking
know, podcaster of the year, iHeartRadio, some odd,
yeah,
whatever the fuck.
I may not win a fucking blah 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 award for podcasting, but I do think that I'm doing some good.
No, I think it's refreshing, right? Because aside from maybe the Mat Therapy podcast of Donna Gonzalez and Becky Dominguez of 10 Planet Jiu Jitsu, we hadn't seen like a female kind of slant on what it is like to be a female in combat sports. Or, us growing up in California, we had Loveline on K Rock, right?
So
And
good.
those are all fucking dudes, though.
Oh yeah.
Like, never from a female perspective, right? And again, to not have the censorship that even a Loveline had, and think about what the Loveline did. And it had censored, and you couldn't say fuck or whatever, and it was like at 10 o'clock at night after all the music had played and whatever. The fact that people can just go, right, and on demand, check out Ashlee Evan Smith and all the amazing fucking guests that she has. The fucking Zeta Zangs, Janae Hardings, Colby Covingtons, and just like see beyond and peel back some of the layers and all the bullshit of a public persona or Instagram post.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. You may think you know what it's about, but I guarantee it's different. And it's very off-putting. Even the name, sex and violent. Ooh. But I think just give it a listen. Pick someone that you're interested in. Give it a listen, and if you're not shocked at a whole new side that you get to see about one of your favorite fighters or entertainers or comedians, then I'll be shocked because I think it's different than what's out there right now, at least in the MMA scene.
I think so. I do concur, 100%. And again, that's why I'm thankful that you're fucking here. And I would say you're doing the Lord's work. Which Lord that is, I don't know. But it's certainly a Lord that somebody alms bears to. So fuck yeah, right on. And in terms of the pandemic, Anderson North says, ironically, I was intent to attend pro wrestling seminar in London, but that was all pre-pandemic. Yeah, that was all fucked up. Like, I was actually going to go to 10th Planet Pasadena, saved up enough money. I've gone on a 4-year sabbatical from the mats of jiu-jitsu, and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go to the 10th Planet. I'm going to go and work towards my purple belt because I'm a fucking pro wrestling fan, and grapple at Naga and hopefully go absolutes and win a fucking title belt. That was my deal. Well, I got the funds May 5th. Oh no, March 5th, 2020. The world fucking shut down 3 days later.
Yeah. And in that instance, in that moment in March, I felt very like poor me. But once you hear about all the other way worse shit, people not being able to attend their own family members' funerals or, like shit like that, it puts it in perspective. And I'm like, oh, I'm fucking young. I'm healthy. I've got things going for me. My shit's not that bad, So I did feel sorry for myself, went to a little, like boohoo kind of depression, but the podcast and other people that were being very resilient and positive helped pull me out of that. And then, thank God I got pulled out of that.
Right on. And again, I love that you're so open and talking about it because I think we all fucking went through a depression, man. I swear to God. Like, I mean, that's the reason why we're a year in and 449 podcasts because again, I'd get depressed and I was like the only reason why I fucking took a shower was to do a podcast on some days. And then I had like 4 of them that day. It happens. Sometimes it beats like that, Now, the MMA superfan, he actually has a little bit of a prediction deal. He says, Misha Tate versus Marion Renault, the Belizean bruiser. Do you have a pick one way or another? This is a fork in a row kind of matchup where we know that Marion is retiring after this. Misha's coming back after, a couple years sabbatical. So, do you have a pick one way or another?
Did Marion say she was for sure retiring?
Mm-hmm.
This is her retirement fight, huh?
Yeah.
I really, really admire that woman. I fought her in 2004.
Yeah.
something like that. It was a very, very important fight for me. I had, lost my debut fight. I was suspended. It took me a year to get back. Like I needed to win that fight to prove to myself that I belonged in the UFC. And I won, and it was a controversial decision, split decision or unanimous, which especially I don't even know, but I won it, and I know I got a lot of backlash from like her fans and other people being like, "Oh, Marion was brought," whatever. I think that that woman, set, smashed a lot of stereotypes with her age, and she was like a school teacher. Like, I know she actually blocked me after we fought, which whatever, but I still think she's amazing, and I. It's so hard because obviously Misha's Misha, right? The
Right.
trailblazer for all of us, but oh man, you're gonna make me pick for sure. Do I have to pick?
I don't know. I think you gave a lot of context and what have you that I
It's
think you get
an
a
anyone fight because I don't know what it's like to come back from having kids,
yeah.
and like you can talk about age, you can talk about body changes with having kids and time off, and she hasn't had time off and ring rust and whatnot. But so if Marion wins, I won't be surprised. If Misha wins, I won't be surprised. Am I gonna bet on it? No fucking way. Two amazing women that I just, I'm just excited to watch the fight, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. I like it. And, I hate kind of putting you on the spot with it. Because you're kind of entrenched, as am I, right?
Yeah.
I tried not to fucking make whatever because there's a coach. I'll get a DM and they're like, you picked against me. And
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
and
like,
exactly same for me. It's like I've been in the UFC and in the sport so long that I feel like I do put my picks online sometime, but it's like hard because there's who I think is going to win on one hand sometimes, and then who I want to win, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And I may know both people and not want to insult one, but most of the time I'm like, yeah, they're not going to see my shit, because they're busy fighting or whatnot. But sometimes they do, and they
yeah.
share and they repost, and I'm like, oh shit, people pay attention.
No, 100%. Yeah, you just never know who's watching. And it's just the thing, right? Like the podcast. You can get like 1,000, 100,000 views or whatever, or you
Mhm.
can get one view that matters that kind of sends you to a different echelon,
Mhm.
and you be good either way. So yeah, yes, I think just the backstory. I think that's enough to kind of skirt an actual prediction. It's gonna be a great fight. Everybody tune in. Now, uh, speaking of fight, but not really fights. Uh, Obviously, after training camps and fights and victories and what have you, what is the thing that you're looking forward to the most? Is it a meal after the fight? Is it what is the thing? Jamming to the headphones, watching a movie. Do you have a ritual or anything like that?
After the fight or after weigh-in?
After the fight,
After the fight. Um, well, until about 2 years ago, I just really loved fucking getting hammered and, just drinking and partying and socializing. But now, honestly, I smoke a lot of weed, and I'm very open with that. And I think that cannabis should be illegal everywhere for every sport, for every state, for every country. I think it is amazing. I think it is a miracle medicinal tool, not just for your body physically, but mentally. Mentally, it has really gotten me through my addiction and sobriety and whatnot. Not to say that, that is a way to stay sober by doing drugs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that sometimes with mental, depression, certain situations that you have going on inside you, it's just like a way to mellow out and find that homeostasis that is so hard to have in this world, in this fight career, in this life. And so yeah, I like to smoke weed, eat food, and have sex.
fuck yeah, right on. I think that's a virtuous life. I couldn't find a hard pressed person that'll tell you any different. So shout out to that. Now, I mean, sex, violence, rebel girl. Some of that has to be kind of tinged in music. What are you listening to right now, or some of your favorite bands or artists that are on the perpetual playlist?
Yeah, music is like is a huge, huge part of my life, and I almost have it playing at every point. Wake up, play music, just always listening to music. There's so many bands, but if I had to like put like a soundtrack to my life, the Misfits were a big part of my life growing up. Dropkick Murphys, Rancid, the Distillers, all those kind of like punk rock bands. And I have like newer like bands that I listen to, but those would be like the core bands. Right now, I'm listening to Turnstile. They are a hardcore band. If you go on my Instagram, I always share music because it's just so fun. It's so cool, and learning about new music. Yeah, that's definitely one of my. People used to ask me, they're like, "Oh, if you weren't fighting, what would you be doing?" And I'm like, "Be a rock star." I mean, I wouldn't because I don't know how to play an instrument or sing, but if I could pick any other profession, I think I would be a rock star. Just seems like a great, great gig.
I think so too. I think so too. Oh my god, yeah, fucking dude. When you were like Dropkick Murphys, I was like Sunshine Highway. When you're like Misfits, I was like, that fucking Jerry Only did a run with like World Championship Wrestling
What?
back. Yes. Oh, I'm gonna send you so many clips. Your DMs will be filled, my sister.
Did
Because
you
like,
know that Jerry Only has a son, also named Jerry? And I'm friends with Jerry Only Jr. And he actually got me in to see the Misfits reunion tour in Las Vegas when they played. Actually, Carla Esparza was fighting. It was at the MGM, and they were playing down. I think it's what that venue called, but they were playing at the MGM. And anyway, he took me backstage. It was like bucket list status. And so shout out to Jerry Only's son, also named Jerry.
yeah, Jerry Only might not be the only Jerry, is what you're saying. No, and I think that's amazing. And obviously, that's the original lineup. That's Glenn Danzig. That's Jerry Only. Fucking Doyle. That's the fucking
Yeah,
OGs. Oh yeah.
it was rad. It
Oh,
was
you're so lucky.
that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, Ashley, there have been a lot of like cool things, especially with like the podcasts. Do you have a favorite like moment, or maybe just the fact that you can express yourself in that way as a fighter, as a female? There's some preconceived notions that happen there, right? But like, what is the most gratifying part? This part of your journey via podcasting.
It's a very good question. I mean, I enjoy a lot of aspects of it. I one thing that I didn't think about when I started the podcast was improving my brand, and like connecting with my fans. I actually didn't think about that. I just thought like I just wanted to create something that was really cool that people liked. Obviously I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't aspirations of monetizing that. Fucking money makes the world go round. We all need to eat, we all need to survive. But I didn't really think too much about connecting with my already established fans on a deeper level. And sometimes each week, so basically the format is, hey guys, welcome. I tell a little bit about myself. I interview the guest. We end with some fun games. Outro, right? Pretty simple. But as I'm telling people, I call it the Ash update, what's going on with myself, it's been like cathartic, really, because, like it's a one-dimensional relationship, but I almost like I can feel. I know people are listening. I can feel people resonate with it. Otherwise, they wouldn't fucking tune in, right? And so, I've just been able to, I don't know, get through this pandemic and this weird time in my life. Not just the pandemic, but my fucking spine surgery. Like all the other shit that I go through. My life is never boring, for better or worse. And the podcast has just been a big help. I didn't mean for it to be some kind of therapy, but it kind of is a little bit.
It fucking is. It fucking is, man. But obviously, you mentioned connecting with your fans and just connecting in large part or small part in a larger community.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of people, both professional and personal, that have helped Ashley, Rebel Girl, Evan Smith get to where you are right now. So take as long as you like. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Oh my God. I mean, obviously, like I said, DJ Zol, he's just been amazing. My boyfriend has helped me, whether it was fucking, talking to someone or at one time he was behind the camera, it just, so Mike Wilson is amazing. That's obviously my partner. We're going to talk about him. And then just the guests, all the guests from, people, big names like Pauly Shore or Kendra Lust, or, that you're like, how did you get this person to come on your show when you only have 4 episodes? The Rachel Ostoviches, Tracy Cortez's, Jessica Eyes, like honestly, I wish I could name every name. I don't have them right off the top of my head. My best friend Dan Kenny, who's in a very popular metal band, Suicide Silence. There's so many people who have just taken 1 hour out of their day to help me out, and because of that, I am where I'm at. I'm not Joey Diaz or Joe Rogan, but I'm working my way there. And just like the fans, as a fighter, I wouldn't be anywhere in the podcasting world without my guests. I wouldn't be anywhere in the fighting world without my fans. And so, all those people that have been my guests, but also all the listeners, my naughty listeners who always tune in and who support me, and they write fan questions and they comment on the Instagram, and hopefully when I get my shit together, buy merch. And I would love to do an in-person live podcast at an event. Like that's the goal. That's what I would like to do someday.
No, thoughts and prayers. Let's get that shit working. Yeah, we need more Ashlee Evans Smith in our life, is what I'm saying. Which I gotta ask, right? For those who are not already following your podcasts on social media, where is the best landing pages where we can get more Rebel Girl, more Ashlee Evans Smith?
Oh, wow. My computer just said you are on 1% battery. So this is really good. Across the board on all social medias, it's at Ashlee MMA, Instagram, Twitter, all those. And if you want to check out the podcast, it's at Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl on Instagram. And that's about it. Yeah.
Hell yes. Well, Ashlee, thank you so much for joining us here on the 1-year edition of According to Woods. And thank you guys for supporting me for a whole year. Cool shit going forward. But thank you guys. But if you aren't subscribed to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, I definitely urge you to do so, because I want to see myself succeed. There's nothing wrong with that. But Ashlee, you're going to be subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Of course. I already am, I'm pretty sure.
Hell yes! So be like the Rebel Girl, Ashlee Evans Smith, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast. But if you don't believe me, you don't believe Ashlee, well, maybe a friend of both the Sex and Violence as well as the According to Woods podcast, Zeta Zhang, will help convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe